Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Opinion Machine, the show where we talk about all things gaming. My name is Killjoy, and today we're going to be talking a bit about Metroid. Yeah, that fun little Nintendo franchise that probably deserves more love than it gets. But yeah, so we know that Metroid Prime 4 is coming, and I feel like a lot is riding on that game to basically, show Nintendo that people are interested in Metroid games. Most of the Metroid games that exist are I'd say 90% of them are very highly regarded. Super Metroid, probably considered one of the greatest games of all time. Same with Metroid Prime, considered one of the best jumps from 2D to 3D for that franchise. You then have Metroid Zero Mission, which I think is one of the best remakes ever made. Fusion, people love. The remake of Metroid 2, so you had Samus Returns. There are a ton of good Metroid games. People love Metroid because of the structure of it, because of the character of Samus. Just a lot of fantastic music, fantastic atmosphere, and honestly, it's one of Nintendo's more. It's one of the more adult franchises. I wouldn't necessarily say it is an adult franchise, but it's a lot more mature. It's less kid-friendly. There's a lot of atmosphere in those games. It's not necessarily scary, but there are definitely times when those games can get quite creepy. And we know Metroid Prime 4 is coming to the Nintendo Switch, and it's something I'm really looking forward to. I've only really played Metroid Prime 3. I've seen my brother play 1 and 2. I do own the trilogy on Wii U, and I do own a physical copy of Metroid Prime 1 and 2 and 3. And to be honest, I'm more of the 2D Metroid kind of person. I think Zero Mission and Super Metroid and Fusion and Samus Returns are probably the best ones for me to play. But I really, really want this franchise to start getting a bit more love. Now, I think that I don't know what you call it. I guess you call it the Nintendo Switch phenomenon, because a lot of games coming out on the Switch sell insane numbers. So, you had Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury. That's a port of a Wii U game, but yet it's still sold way better than the Wii U one. And it goes to show that the Switch is doing incredibly well. And anytime a game comes out that's generally first party or very well advertised, Monster Hunter is a good example of that. These games are selling a lot of copies, and I think Metroid Prime is much more of a Western-liked franchise, but the thing is, people love Metroid. They hold it on a very high pedestal for this quality first-person adventure style gaming, or these fantastic backtracking style games, hence the whole Metroidvania term that exists. And what we're seeing is that, Nintendo have made a couple of misfires and a few missteps with the franchise. I wouldn't say there's necessarily any terrible games. People debate about Other M. I actually quite like the gameplay in Other M to a degree. Well, it's not a perfect game by any means, but there are some really cool ideas in it. And I think that really hampered the series, that game, and then releasing Federation Force, which apparently isn't a bad game. It's just, unfortunately, not a Metroid game that people wanted at the time. And so Metroid Prime 4 is, hopefully we'll see something about it this year at E3. If not, by the end of the year, that would be great. And it's sad because this franchise is so well put together. The games are so well, the lore in all the games, all about Samus, all about the Chozo, all about the Space Pirate, everything that goes into these games is fantastic. It's so well put together. The stories are great. There's a lot of lore there that can be uncovered. Honestly, out of all Nintendo's franchises, a Metroid TV show or a Metroid film would be amazing. If you do it in kind of the style, very not like I said horror, but very atmospheric. That'd be so super cool. And it's a game series that just doesn't quite. It's never sold well, which is baffling when you have so many games in a series that are super popular. Considered as good as they are. And I'm really hoping what Nintendo does now is starts putting, other games on the Switch to sell. There's long-standing rumors of Metroid Prime trilogy coming. There's obviously Metroid Prime 4, which we know about. There's also rumors about a 2D Metroid coming to the Nintendo Switch, which I think is great. I really hope that they're making games for this, and I really hope people buy it, because basically, as far as I see, Metroid Prime 4 for it to be successful and Nintendo to consider doing it again, I think you're looking at 3.5 to 5 million copies sold. I think it needs to do that within its first year, which is quite a lot to ask for a game that isn't, you know, bright and colourful like Mario, or isn't like a big adventure game like Zelda. I mean, technically Metroid is an adventure game, but it's not the same, doesn't have the same pull to it. You know, I want the game to do well. I want it to sell, you know, if it sells 1 million copies in its first weekend, that's good news. if it's life, you know, if after a month it sold like 3 million copies, then at least Nintendo knows that people want Metroid games. I'm not expecting this to be up in, you know, 10 to 15 million. Like, I mean, if it hits 10 million copies sold, then wow, people want Metroid for sure, and that clearly is, you know, a great game for it then, you know. And the fact that Retro Studios is making it makes me feel good about it. I mean, there's a lot on the line, honestly, but I feel confident because these guys have got experience, and yes, not every single member of the team are there anymore, but they're going to hopefully update it to, like, you know, have like modern control schemes. Because let's be honest, like Metroid Prime 1 and 2, like, they handle absolutely fine on the GameCube for what they are, but they are like essentially single stick controlled games, which people don't really enjoy anymore. They want the dual analog, which this game will hopefully have. And I think you can do a lot of stuff. Like, my personal hopes for it are that, like, you know, there are new interesting items to use. There are motion controls as well as standard controls. The game pushes the Nintendo Switch hardware to its limit. You know, Metroid Prime is a beautiful game for its time. You know, it stood up to the likes of Halo. You know, that's how good those games came out at similar times. And, you know, they they were flagship for their consoles they were on, for first-person games anyway. And so I'm confident that Metroid Prime 4 is going to look good and it's probably going to play really well. I'm just worried for the franchise because, you know, these games are known for quality, and yet the sales numbers just aren't there. Bringing out a new 2D Metroid is really cool as well. If it's Mercury Steam, the guys that made Samus Returns, making a sequel to that, or making a remake of Fusion or something like that and bringing it to the Switch, then I'm all for it, because Metroid Samus Returns is an awesome game. Like, one of the best uses of 3D I've ever seen in the game as well. Like, you know, I mean, yes, it was based on Metroid 2, which is not necessarily the best Metroid game, but they did a really good job of, like, adding in new content and making the game feel good and alive, and adding in, like, a melee attack. They just did so much with that game that made it super fun. And, like, those Metroid, like, the Metroid games that I enjoy, like that one, Zero Mission's probably my favourite. They're just, it's a formula that just works so well. And I really, really, really hope that we're going to see more of, you know, more of an interest now. More people interested in playing Metroid, wanting to see Metroid. I mean, Samus pops up in everything. You know, Samus's ship is in Rocket League. Obviously, Samus is in Smash. Like, this is a character that people love. Like, Nintendo fans love Samus, but for some reason the games just don't seem to be, like, you know, hitting the mark or whatever, and that sucks. Because if you ask people about, like, those Metroidvania style games, you can guarantee that there's going to be a Metroid game that they've played and they love. You know, like I said, Zero Mission is awesome. Like, some people love Fusion. You know, there's so much stuff there that, you know, that makes this game series so well loved because of the like, you know, the level design, the item design, the backtracking, all this sort of things. Like, it's a very specific style of game that people just enjoy. And yeah, we're at a point now where, you know, there's a lot riding on Metroid Prime 4, and that's scary. That is scary because, you know, if Nintendo doesn't see a decent success for it, then they're not going to bother putting the time into it, I don't think. I think now is the time to bring out a game like this on the Switch, because we're seeing games like Super Mario Party selling like 12 million copies or whatever it is. In New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe selling like 10 million copies. There's so much stuff right now that is selling so well that you think, wow, that didn't necessarily need to sell that much, but it is. And it goes for every other Nintendo franchise that has either been dormant for a while or has not had the greatest sales numbers. Yes, like F-Zero, probably the other best example. If you re-release GX on here, fine. You know, you're probably going to find you're going to get a few million copies out of that. And, you know, I'm sure they have sales numbers in their heads for these games of what they make, but I honestly think Metroid Prime 4 needs to hit 3.5 to 5 million copies for it to be considered a success. You know, and that probably make it the most successful Metroid. I think. I can't remember how much Metroid Prime 1 made, but it's, you know, I'm hoping at E3 we see something, and we get some kind of like hype behind it. We get to, you know, just see some of the world design, if nothing else. Like, that's what I want to see is what does the game look like. We're probably only going to get a CG trailer. Honestly, I can't imagine we're going to get gameplay. I would love the game to come out in 2022, but I think 2023 seems more likely for Metroid Prime 4. So, but yeah, like, honestly, like, at this point, I want the franchise to be doing a lot better than it is, and I really hope people are going to get invested to the point where they will buy this game. And if there is a 2D1 rumored as well, they will buy that game, and like, just show support for this franchise, because Mario and Zelda, like, they're always going to sell well. Splatoon always going to sell well. Animal Crossing, Pokemon, you know. And Nintendo has all these franchises that aren't quite at that level that, you know, can sometimes be more interesting in a lot of ways. You know, and I think that's the thing I like about F-Zero and Metroid in these games that we don't get a lot of, because they usually, when they do come out, they make an impact, and they're usually pretty good. You know, there's a consistency with most of them. And I think that's what I want to see personally, is just this game come out in a bloody good state. Really fun, gripping game, a lot of cool ideas, a lot of cool mechanics, and the game getting, like, hopefully high reviews, and people being like, you need to buy this game, this is a must-have on Switch. And then people going out and buying it. Obviously, if the game's rubbish, then, you know, don't buy it. But I just really want to see the game do well. I really want to see it do well. And hopefully this doing well means more Metroid in the future, and it hopefully means Nintendo are willing to kind of start using some of those franchises that they aren't doing as, you know, aren't really using. You know, I've said it before, like, F-Zero and Advance Wars are the two that I want to see come back, but Metroid might be the way for that stuff to happen. If Metroid goes out there and sells really well for a Metroid game, like I said, I'm not expecting 10 million, but if, like, say it hits 5 million copies sold, that's crazy numbers for a Metroid game. And then we can start to see, you know, like, that people are interested there. So that's where I'm at with Metroid. As we get closer and closer and closer to E3, I'll probably be talking about different franchises and games, and then eventually get to kind of like predictions, what I'm hoping to see when we get to E3. But yeah, today I just wanted to talk about Metroid because I feel like it bears talking about, and it's a, you know, people love Metroid, and I want more people to get into it, basically, and I want it to do well. So anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. As always, if you like the video, hit the like button. If you want to see more content like this, hit subscribe. Links for Facebook and Twitter will be down below in the description, and until next video, I will see you then.